Thank you, Todd. Can everybody hear me? Or should I be standing here? Greetings. Actually, I should start by remembering my friend Chander Mohan Jain, whom I have had good opportunity to meet 5 or 6 times before his sad death. And he had made a lasting impression on me. So therefore, when I'm invited for this lecture series here, in his memory, I really feel that is a great honor. And I thank Jain as well as Nicole DeResser, who worked very hard to stage or to put on this, so to say, show, and not only for inviting me, but also for allowing me to choose a rather controversial topic. Is Jainism suitable for the 21st century? Why am I asking this question? Why even raise the question whether Jainism is suitable for 21st century or not? And the reason is that Jainism or Jain religion or Jain Dharma, whatever you may choose to call, is more than 2,600 years old. And the 21st century, just a teenager, not even 14 yet. So, would this teenager be interested in what 2,600 years ago people were talking about? That is the question. As a scientist, as you were explained, I have my degree, PhD in chemistry, and I taught chemistry all my life. So as a scientist, I am always eager to find out critically examine the things. And that is why I started thinking about this particular topic, and it is very dear to me. But before we decide whether these two entities, if I may call, 21st century is one entity, as far as I'm deliberately using the word entity, 21st century is one entity, and Jainism is another. We have to define both these terms to see whether they are a perfect match or not. It is easy to define Jainism because it has been there for so long and we know all about it. But what about this teenager? How do we define it? All we have is some of the events that all of us, most of us, have witnessed together in past 14 years. Events like a terrorist attack on New York's Twin Tower. All of you remember that. Events like recent attack on our parliament, Canadian parliament. You know that. Then a ghastly event, a military group, a jihadist group, beheading people and then proudly displaying them, that their ghastly act on the television and on the web. I started wondering, what are we coming to? What is this 21st century? Where is this 21st century going? And naturally, I've been worrying about it. But these events, few as they are, still give us some foresight, some information about the way the 21st century is shaping up. These are the trend-setting events. And if these events continue the way they are, I don't think 21st century is very promising. As a matter of fact, it will turn out to be a very troublesome century. The 14-year-old teenager is a troubled teenager. Are we going to let that happen? these particular event, particularly the last event, as I feel right now, is shaping up to be a World War III. I'm afraid. It's shaping up to be World War III, and I hope not, but it is looking like that, and possibly between two major religions, Christianity and Islam. I hope not, but that is the fear I have. I worry about it. And that's why I hear, and it's not only me, whatever is happening, I hear a lot of youth who say to me, or their actions tell me, that they are fed up. Youth are fed up with the never-ending war. And as far as I am concerned, all of you are youth. Well, relative to me anyway. All of you are youth, and possibly you all are fed up with never-ending wars and violence. You are probably, and I am, fed up with ever-increasing fundamentalism. I am fed up with traditional power politics and dominance. I am fed up with environmental degradation. These are the topics. This is foretelling us what is 21st century is likely to be if we continue on this path. And therefore, I feel in the heart of my heart, and the number of modern youth, number of 21st century youth are agitating for that, and they want to bring back human happiness, social justice, and peace. Good. Do you feel that way too? Are you with me on this? Say it loudly then. Yeah, I'm up. Okay. Fed up, yes, I'm fed up, but I also have hope. I have hope because there are other events, particularly initiated and started by our youth. And therefore, my hope is, I thought the class people, the young people will be sitting, the students will be sitting in one corner that I can point out to them. But anyway, my hopes are pinned upon this generation. Why? Because look at the other events of the last 14 years. Thousands of young men and women have occupied Central Square in Hong Kong to save democracy. A replay of Tiananmen Square, many of you might remember that, is still possible. They are still occupying Hong Kong, and one of these days, I'm afraid, Chinese government will do the same thing as it did in 1993, I think, 1989. I'm sorry, 1989. Okay. Another thing, another good sign of hope, hundreds of young doctors and nurses have signed up with Doctors Without Borders to serve Ebola patients in Africa. Young doctors and these things. At the same time, I see a trend among young people. By a large number, they are joining organizations such as Greenpeace, Save the Trees, vegetarian associations, human rights, children's rights, women's rights, prevention of cruelty to animals. These are indicative of the fact that the 14th century students or 14th century youth not only are fed up, but they are not sitting tight, or they are not dropping out like flower children in 1960s. That you probably might have known. They are not dropping out, they are actively working to bring hope, bring good life, bring peace, or end violence in this society. And that is my hope. Their sit-ins, and of course, on one side is fear, on the other side is hope, and always hope is better than fear. So, what are today's young people doing? They are trying to change the course of the 14th century, the awful, fearful, not 14th century, 21st century. They are trying to change the course of it. And they are, for that purpose, they are ready even to die. Tiananmen Square, though it was in the previous century, thousands of people, hundreds of young students were killed by Chinese. People go and hug the trees. They want to save trees. And they chain themselves to trees. Number of events to bring peace, reduce environmental degradation, and care for dispossessed and poor. That is the sign of that is the movement that the youth today are engaged in. However, and I personally hope that they will succeed in that. However, I also feel that only demonstrations, street demonstrations, and sit-ins is not going to work. They have to have some direction. Their whole movement has to have some direction. And that direction, I feel, is possible. If we look at the history of our planet, there is a direction. They don't know it yet, and I'm here to tell them that what they are doing there, others might be thinking that it is hooliganism, street violence, and things like this, but really what they are doing is a spiritual act. And let me explain. I will explain why I'm calling this as spiritual by taking the example of Tiananmen Square. Those who are old enough, but still younger than me, do remember, I'm sure they remember, that thousands and thousands of, more than 10,000 students were occupying Tiananmen Square in 1989. Chinese did, and they were occupying because they wanted democracy. Again, good life. Of course, as you know, China is a communist country, and government was not interested in that. Therefore, they asked students to vacate. Students were in no mood. Then government decided to send a battalion of armored vehicles, tanks. And the scene vividly is etched on every person's mind that happened at that time, that as the first tank was rolling in, a young man went with his arms in front of the tank and daring the driver to kill him first. What is surprising is that driver slowed down and then turned his direction to avoid crushing this young man. Remember this? Anybody seen this? All right? What is more surprising is that the young man turned again and went in front of the tank. The tank turned in the other direction. Again, the man ran in front of this thing. This happened, this horrifying event. We were horrified because I was watching on the TV. I wasn't part of the demonstration. It was a horrifying event. At any moment, the tank could have advanced a little further and the man would have been killed. But instead, what a surprising thing happened is the tank stopped, the man came out on the top, and stood like that. In effect, he was saying, I'm not going to run over you, I want to join you. This was the event vividly everybody who watched remembers. Now, I'm asking you, how do we explain this? The young man going in front of the tank to get killed for facing the certain death, and the tank driver also disobeying his superiors and not crushing the people, but coming out and saying, okay, he was aware that he will be facing firing squad for not obeying. And yet he did that. How do we explain that? To me, this explanation, the only explanation is that both of them, the driver as well as the young man, both of them were doing a spiritual act. Their act was spiritual. How do we say that? Why do we say that? Spiritual, because both of them were acting according to their conscience. And acting according to their conscience is real spirituality. After all, what is spirituality? Well, is obeying God spirituality? Obeying your priest or pandit or mullah, is it spirituality? Going to church or temple or gurudwara or mosque, is that spirituality? What is spirituality? I define spirituality simply as acting according to your conscience. And when I say word your conscience, the word conscience is different than your desire. The conscience is the human spirit. Human spirit is by nature very kind, compassionate, and merciful. That is the real definition of pure spirit. And that is what is called as conscience. But unfortunately, that conscience in everyday life, in our life, is suppressed by something that we have learned, we have been taught, we have been thinking about as wanting and having and so on and so forth. In other words, we have been brainwashed to do certain things a certain way. That is not conscience. Conscience is what your inner self, your pure soul, if I may use that word, what pure soul dictates you is conscience. No matter what the surrounding world tells you, that's different. So if we define conscience in that way, or the spirituality in that way, then spirituality is what your conscience tells you. And the youth, I earlier said, their action, their action is spiritual. I'm saying that because although they are ready to die for the cause that they are fighting, their cause is to bring in better tomorrow, peaceful world, clean world. This is what your inner sense tells. They are ready to throw away their life, but they want a better world, not only for them, but for all of us. Unfortunately, as I said, the struggle is spiritual, but they don't know. And that's why different groups take different routes without knowing that spirit is involved in their action. And they get frustrated because sometimes they are shot at, sometimes they are laughed at, sometimes corporations just ignore them, or people like us also ignore them. We enjoy watching them on the TV and say, oh, these idiots. So, what is needed is the popular support. They have to be able to get the popular support. They have to change the mindset of the masses in the countries, in each country, globally, of the masses that they are demonstrating with or that they are living around. Changing the mindset of the masses is the important thing. Without that, people will not join their struggle, and if people don't join their struggle, they are not going to succeed. So, the question is, can the mindset globally be changed? Is it possible to turn around the societies? Is it possible to turn around the societies away from violence or away from greed, whatever, the so-called normal life? And my answer is yes. Yes, it is possible. How can they generate worldwide support? Is it possible? I'm reading from this for a minute. Is it possible to change the collective mindset of the masses, or is it just a pipe dream? Can the entire society, the entire world be turned around? Yes, my answer is yes. Yes, it is possible to change the global mindset. Nelson Mandela did it. Martin Luther King did it. Mahatma Gandhi did it. Christ did it, and Mahavir did it 2,600 years ago. That is where this process started. I so far defined 21st century. Now I'm going to define Jainism. You might be wondering, why am I talking all this when the lecture is about Jainism? But I'm coming to this topic because it is in two parts. Jainism is one part, and the 21st century is the other. I have finished defining 21st century. Now let us see how Mahavir did it. All these people did, Mahavir, how he did, and then I will come back to those people also. All these individuals turned their world around to their own spiritual calling. They each, and unfortunately or fortunately, at that time, each one of them, at Mahavir's time, of course, there were no instant messaging and no television and no media. But he was able to change the mindset of thousands and thousands of people. To do that, he had to travel on foot from one village to other in India, and he finally achieved it. He was the 24th guru of Jains, and he managed to turn the violent society of his time. In his time, the little kingdoms were fighting wars. Animals were being killed in the name of religion, sacrifices. It was a very violent society, and he turned that into a peaceful society, at least created a large peaceful society at that time. What he has really done is turn the mindset, change the mindset of the people. How did he do it? How did he do it? Well, his genius was to identify the key elements of an untainted human spirit. I'm using the word untainted for the first time now in this lecture. Untainted in the sense rather pure, but The reason I'm calling untainted, because many pasts, including Christ, has used that. If you look at, I will come to that Bible, Romans, you'll see there is a sentence saying, for all of us have sinned. That is tainted. Sinned means tainted spirit. Anyway, Mahavir's genius is to identify the key elements of untainted human spirit. And his technique was simply to appeal to those three spiritual elements which really are the conscience of his listeners. So he used spiritual means to turn the people around. What are the three key elements of the human spirit? I call that as, okay, let us see now, 3 R's. I call that as 3 R's of Jainism. First is respect all life. Every life wants to be respected. I want to be, you want to be, even a dog wants to be. So, Mahavir identified that this is the innate quality of pure spirit to respect everybody. Although our conscience is suppressed by our hatred for somebody or lust for something and all that. So, the first R that he gave is respect all life, which is non-violence. His non-violence or his compassion was not just limited to human life. It was all life, all living beings. Furthermore, his focus was not just on actions, it was mainly on our spirit, on human spirit. He maintained that unlimited, look at the description of spirit, unlimited compassion, perception, knowledge, and happiness. Unlimited compassion, perception, knowledge, and happiness are the innate qualities of a pure soul. Our daily life must reflect those qualities, even if our tainted soul has only limited amounts of those innate qualities. In other words, we, the born ones, the born with the tainted soul ones, have those qualities, but not unlimited. There are limits on it because our soul is tainted. So our daily life must reflect that. Therefore, he defined violence in a very different way. But let me go to the next R. Respect all viewpoints. Respect all viewpoints, and well, this is not his words. His words are not even in English anyway. They are here given here in red letters or orange letters. Anekantavad. What he is saying there is, since we are born sinners, in a sense, or with tainted soul, since we don't have unlimited knowledge, unlimited perception, our perception, knowledge, since we are imperfect, everything that we perceive is also imperfect. Truth, nobody can see whole truth. We only see the certain facets of truth. I may be seeing certain facets of this microphone. From this angle, it looks like a black ball, but from the other side, it is different. So, he says truth is multifaceted. We have got to recognize that. And rather than fighting on, I am right and you are wrong, His advice is, and I'm coming to that again little in the next slide, but let us see what is the third R. The third R is respect your environment. So, and I don't think that needs explanation, at least in 21st century. We know what we have done with our environment. So, Mahavir's definition of violence. Mahavir doesn't say killing is violence. Mahavir doesn't say hurting somebody or hitting somebody is violence. His definition is very simple. He says, any act, whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, unintentional or not, any act that violates our soul's innate quality. What is the innate quality? Compassion. Anything that violates that compassion, that kindness, is violence, is essentially violence. The other definition, the next list. Now, to make people understand what he says, he is giving some examples. Telling a lie. Well, I should read from there. Telling a lie is violence. Exploiting other living beings. Remember, these are the phrases of 2,600 years ago, not of the 21st century. In his time, he was talking about these things. Exploiting other living beings. Depriving someone's livelihood. Denying legitimate rights of people. Ignoring pain and suffering of others. We should think about what we do in our daily life, how much violence we are doing. And when he's talking about other beings, he's not talking about human beings only, other life. So, and then he goes on, violence 3, treating other lives as inferior, denying education or knowledge to someone, wishing ill, even wishing, there is no action. To wish ill of somebody also is violence, because that is against the quality of soul. And then he doesn't stop there. He goes further on. Similarly, poverty and discrimination based on caste, color, or gender are acts of social violence. Why? Okay. Here, and he defines that. He says, a society that tolerates such behavior against its people or other living beings is a violent society. Think about it and decide where we are. His second principle, respect all viewpoints, is based on the fact that all of us are born tainted. And as I said, consider from Bible, for all have sinned, Romans 3:23. Therefore, since our souls are tainted, therefore our perceptions are also tainted, because we see only part of the truth and limited. These limitations allow us to perceive only some facets, while others may perceive totally different facets of the same multifaceted truth. Therefore, truth is multifaceted and no living being can perceive all its facts. Therefore, instead of fighting over who is right and who is wrong, we should listen carefully, analyze different viewpoints, and try to get closer to absolute truth. Multi-faith meetings, have you attended? That is what we have started in recent years. He was talking about it 2,600 years ago. Don't say my religion is right and yours is wrong. This is why Jains don't proselytize. We all have imperfect knowledge, respect everybody else's opinion, don't reject it offhand, discuss, try to understand other viewpoint, and try to reach the truth. This is his second art. This is also the an example often quoted in Jain literature, which I was told when I was this little boy, my mother told me, and that is the story of 3 blind men and an elephant. I don't know how many of you know that story, but essentially what it is 3 blind men had never seen an elephant. They were born blind, and they had a chance to find out what elephant is. So when they were told that the elephant is just ahead of you, go ahead and find out. Only way they can find out is by touch. So one person goes and goes like this and touches the body of the elephant. And he says, aha, an elephant is like a wall. Meanwhile, the second person goes and he manages to hold the trunk of the elephant. And he said, no, not a wall, it is like a trunk of a tree. And the third one goes and picks up the tail of the elephant and says, nah, not a tree, not a wall, it is like a snake, it wiggles, I'm holding it in my hand. Tell me, who's right? They all are. They all are right, but only by their own perspective. Nobody has the whole truth. And this is what Anekantavad, or respect all viewpoints, is all about. Okay? Anekantavad, and I use the word Anekantavad, that means Anek means many, many-sided truth. Okay? Anekantavad is a unique Jain contribution to world peace. It fosters respect for those who hold alternate views and beliefs and reduces the potential of dogmatism. It is a practical tool for interfaith dialogue, mutual respect for differing viewpoints, and to avoid conflicts. Would you not agree with me? I'm asking you, would you not agree with me that if Anekantavad was better understood years and years and centuries ago, would we not have been able to stop any wars? Moreover, even if now we understand, would we not be able to stop wars? Those are fought in the name of I'm right and you're wrong, that is righteousness, self-righteousness. Mahavir actually used this tool. I'm calling this a tool, the 3 tools. He used this tool at that time to appeal to the hearts of the fighting kings and stopped many wars at that time. Those were mini wars, not global wars. But he was effective in doing so. Next is respect your environment. Minimizing wants, and I don't need to explain that, but let me go to environment. We are not talking about 21st century. We are talking about 2,600 years ago. And he is telling us that air, water, and our earth are all living systems, man will abuse it at his own peril. Does it ring bell for us in the 21st century? And then he says all living systems are interdependent. Oh, okay. All air, water, and earth are all living systems, okay. Okay. Then he says all living systems are interdependent and our survival depends on survival path. I think I should have gone back. Okay. So this much about what he says about air, water, and earth. But then he goes on, and this rings much louder bell for us in the 21st century. He says, okay, do not lose self-control when buying and possessing things. His words are, he used to give that information in very few words. Here I have written that as do not lose control when buying and possessing things, or you will be possessed by what you bought. His words were, do not possess, or else the possessor will be possessed, will become possessed. At the beginning of the lecture, I asked a question, will the 21st century, this young teenager, be interested in listening to 2,600 years old advice? And I think I said or not, at that time, my notes say anyway, that I'm going to surprise you. And here I'm coming to surprise now. Mahavir created a peaceful community of Jains by using his 3 R's. Mahatma Gandhi's genius was to use non-violence, one of the tools, spiritual tools, not only to awaken millions of Indians, but also to appeal to the conscience of the British rulers. There are several examples where he has, when people became somewhat violent, he stopped the violence, he said, let us stop the British. That is one of the things he is known for. In more recent years, Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela also used spiritual tools. You remember the speech, I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King's? It was a spiritual appeal. So, my advice to the 21st century youth is your struggle is spiritual, your goal is spiritual, but if you want mass support, know that it is spiritual, know or find out what appeals the soul, the pure soul, and use those tools which Mahavir used, which Gandhi used, which Martin Luther King used, which Nelson Mandela used. Those who have turned the masses around, they have used spiritual truth, and youth should use the same thing. Thankfully, some youth leaders seem to be aware of this missing element. What I am talking about missing element is, they have everything. The youth in their struggle are using everything. But the tool for gathering or converting mass opinion is missing. And that tool is what Mahavir has shown. And fortunately, some youth are aware of that. That is what is called as new spirituality. They call that as new spirituality, although it is I shouldn't be using old wine in new bottle because Mahavir didn't use wine. I say old medicine in new bottle. Anyway, Thankfully, some youth leaders seem to be aware. I urge my young friends, everybody here, to take note of these 3 R's and join the revolution that your brothers and sisters have started. They have started that revolution. With a clear understanding of 3 R's, you will be better equipped to lead that revolution. You understand that if you understand these 3 R's, you will be the leaders of that revolution. Be proactive and make your future happy, because without that, you know where 21st century is going towards. To my friends who are not so young, they are younger than me, but they are not so young, I plead that they give a helping hand to their children and grandchildren. You don't have to join the street demonstrations. You can be more effective if you studied Mahavir's know-how in greater details and inform the world about it. Awaken your friends, neighbors, and colleagues, and pressure your leaders and politicians to support these young forerunners of new spirituality. In conclusion, I would remind you that just like Mahavir's time, our world today is also full of violence, wars, and cruelty. In fact, our future may be even more bleak and scary compared with Mahavir's peaceful time. Therefore, because of that, people today may be more receptive to accept Jainism's 3 R's. In short, Jainism is not only suitable, but is also absolutely essential. Thank you.